Hi, it's me, and today we are going to look at the first fires. Humans did not evolve from apes, but we did evolve from earlier hominins who used tools. You know, I made an entire series about that, and if you want to watch that series, it is in the description below. We went over how early hominins got to use tools, how they used those tools, what kinds of tools they used, and more. And while we were doing that, we also learned how these hominins lived. And one of the things that we learned is that they did not cook their food. They basically ate their meat raw. So now we want to learn how cooking our food led to larger brains. Check out this video right here. But today we are going to talk about how humans learned to control flame. It's me. Welcome to my channel, where we learn the boring history that you won't learn anywhere else. And today we are looking at the first fires. Now, this is a really interesting topic, because it's hard to find good information on this. And any information that we do have is sometimes questionable, because it's very hard to study something that happened over 1 million years ago. Our earliest ancestors split off from other primates between 6 and 7 million years ago in Africa. They were small proto-hominins who were barely more advanced than the apes that we share a common ancestor with. But over the next few million years, these early hominins evolved into larger brained creatures who could stand up on 2 legs and walk across the savannas of Africa. These early humans would use rocks to crack open nuts and eventually started to use simple tools. This period of time is known as the Paleolithic or Old Stone Age. During this period of time, we have the Oldowan tool industry, named after the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, where many of these tools were found. These tools date back to around 2.6 million years ago and were most likely created by Homo habilis, which means handyman. Homo habilis was one of the first members of our genus Sad, and when they appeared, they brought with them some of the first stone tools. But there is evidence that they were not the first to use tools. In 2015, researchers announced the discovery of stone tools that predate the appearance of Homo habilis by 500,000 years. These tools were discovered in Kenya and Ethiopia and proved that our ancestors were probably using tools even before they were making them. The reason that these tools came before Homo habilis is that the species that was using them has not yet been identified. It may have belonged to an extinct species or genus that we don't know about yet. It could be that Homo habilis stole their idea, and then we lost that technology until we rediscovered it. There are a lot of theories and no real answers. Anyway, Homo erectus was another early human species that lived during this time. Their name means upright man, and they were definitely upright. Homo erectus had a brain size of 900 cubic centimeters, which is much larger than our modern 1400 cubic centimeters. They also used a wide variety of tools and were the first to make controlled hand axes. As you can see from this example, these axes were shaped by carefully chipping away at stones. They also learned to use fire for warmth and cooking, which allowed them to digest plants that would otherwise be unpalatable. Cooking food also allows us to get more nutrients out of the foods that we eat and gave our ancestors the boost that they needed to grow larger brains. Homo erectus lived from roughly 1.8 million to 117,000 years ago. That's a huge gap of time, and they spread from Africa into Asia and Europe. But despite their success, they went extinct just like all of the other species of early humans. Neanderthals and US modern humans are the only surviving members of the human family. Neanderthals were once widespread throughout Europe and parts of Asia. They were stocky human relatives who lived during the last ice age. At the peak of their existence, they numbered somewhere between 500,000 to 10 million individuals, but their population greatly declined when modern humans began migrating into their territory. It is believed that interbreeding between the two species led to most Neanderthals being absorbed into modern human populations. But despite this, some of their DNA still lives on in some people. If you have European or Asian ancestry, you might carry some Neanderthal genes. Most of our knowledge of Neanderthals comes from the discovery of bones and artifacts. The first Neanderthal bones were found in Germany in 1856. But it wasn't until 1908 that a full skeleton was discovered in a cave in Iraq. Since then, hundreds of Neanderthal skeletons have been found and scientists have been able to learn a lot about them. They used sophisticated tools and weapons, hunted large game animals and lived in caves. They also buried their dead and cared for the sick and injured. Despite the common belief that they were stupid brutes, they were actually quite intelligent. In fact, they may have been smarter than us. Research shows that they had bigger brains than modern humans, and that they were capable of abstract thought and complex language. Neanderthals went extinct around 40,000 years ago, but the question remains, why did they die out? Some believe that it was the result of competition with modern humans. Others believe that it was caused by climate change or disease. It may have even been a combination of all three. But whatever the cause, it is clear that Neanderthals were once successful human relatives who went extinct due to circumstances beyond their control. They are an important part of our evolutionary past, and we can learn a lot from studying them. By understanding the mistakes that they made, we can avoid making the same mistakes ourselves. Now we come to the first fires. Neanderthals were incredibly successful at surviving in Ice Age environments. They were well adapted to cold climates and were able to hunt large game animals that lived in these environments. They also used sophisticated tools and weapons to help them survive. One of the reasons for their success was their ability to control fire. Fire provided warmth and light in dark and cold places. It also allowed them to cook their food, which made it easier to digest and more nutritious. Fire also helped to protect them from predators, since most animals are afraid of fire. But where did they get the idea to start fires? Well, we don't know exactly where they got the idea, but we do know that they weren't the first to discover fire. That credit goes to Homo erectus. Homo erectus was the first human relative to learn how to control fire. This would have been around 1.5 million years ago. The evidence for this comes from the discovery of burnt bones and stone tools at archaeological sites. These sites date back to around 1.5 million years ago, which is the same time period that Homo erectus was living in. It is believed that Homo erectus used fire for cooking, warmth, and protection. Fire also helped to drive away dangerous animals and insects. Using fire allowed our ancestors to cook their food, which made it easier to digest and more nutritious. Cooking food also allowed our ancestors to eat a wider variety of foods, which led to a more varied diet. This varied diet gave our ancestors the nutrients that they needed to develop larger brains. Homo erectus also used fire for warmth. Fire provided a source of heat that could be used to keep warm in cold environments. This was especially important in the winter months when temperatures dropped below freezing. Fire also provided light in dark places. This made it possible for our ancestors to see in the dark and to carry on activities such as hunting and gathering in low light conditions. It also provided a psychological sense of safety. A fire's flickering light and crackling sounds created an atmosphere of security. This helped early humans feel safe and secure in their environment. The oldest evidence of fire use by Homo erectus was found in Wonderwork Cave in South Africa. The dating of the ashes and burnt bones suggests that the earliest date for the use of fire at this site is 1.7 million years ago. Another early site for the domestic use of fire is Chesil Beach in England. Here, evidence suggests that Homo erectus used a beach fire for cooking and social activities as far back as 500,000 years ago. So that's how prehistoric humans learned to control flame. What's your favorite thing about fire? Let me know in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to check out my podcast. Links are in the description below. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want, and I'll see you next time.